Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here in Dubrovnik with you, a city so rich in history, layered in culture, and familiar with the power of storytelling. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here with you and contribute to the conversation here. Thank you to the organization. This is such a wonderful place and, bringing so many players from the ecosystem. So let me start with a brief introduction about, what we do at the Motion Picture Association. I lead indeed the Europe, Middle East, and Africa office region for the NPA. The NPA is an organization that has been advocating for the creative industries for over a century. We were created in 1922. So, indeed, we celebrated our 100th anniversary a while ago to protect the nascent film industry. And our European office has been around since 1993. Um, on screen, you see our current membership. So, we have 7 members active in content production and distribution, global players indeed. And while our roots are in film, today the activities we represent really span theatrical, streaming, television, home entertainment. Our mission is really very simple. We want to support a legal, sustainable, and secure environment where creative works can be made, distributed, and enjoyed. We want to do that across borders and technologies. So our work is global, but our approach in EMEA is really deeply regional because we work closely with national governments, law enforcement, all the stakeholders to make sure that the solutions are really tailored to the markets, to the legal and cultural and market dynamics indeed. So what do we do at the MPA more generally? But also at EMEA, content protection, of course, is our core activity, but we do policy and advocacy around content protection and other issues. We do reports and research and strategic communications. And those 4 areas are not silos. They are really deeply interconnected. Of course, policy and advocacy needs to be supported by data, reports, and research. Content protection needs to be carried by strong legislation. And maybe most importantly, communication. We really need to engage with the public if we want to change behavior around legal content. And that kind of brings me to the core of my presentation here today, which is piracy. Piracy is still a major issue, not just an economic issue, but also a safety issue. It's a social issue. It's a cultural issue. And depending on the methodologies, we see that global losses range from 40 to 90 billion. And, whenever piracy thrives, and people think of piracy sometimes as disruption, but it's actually really displacement in many places in the world. It displaces jobs, revenue, investment in new contents. I mentioned it's also a security issue. Half the piracy apps out there contain malware. 1 out of 5 Europeans has experienced identity theft, and this is often really facilitated by malware on these services. And yet consumers are not aware of these dangers mostly. A lot of them approve of piracy or don't see it as a crime, or at least see it as a harmless crime or a victimless crime. And so we really need to kind of communicate to change those behaviors. So, what does piracy look like today? What is the challenge? We have far moved beyond torrents, peer-to-peer, still out there, but we've moved beyond that. So the services like the Pirate Bay that we used to know, today's piracy is sleek, seamless, and it looks like a legitimate service. You can subscribe to it. It's advertised on social media, in physical markets, online. And so, we have those streaming apps, we have plug and play IPTV boxes. And I think one of the concerning trends we're seeing is piracy as a service. I don't know if anyone has heard of that it really makes the problem of piracy or fighting piracy even more complicated. Piracy as a service is a B2B piracy model. So it's a little bit like a wholesale market for pirates, selling turnkey solutions to aspirational criminals, so to speak. Today, you don't need to have any IT knowledge to start your piracy website. You can get those turnkey packages. So, for example, you have streaming platforms that are white labeled that you just have to kind of brand with your new pirate brands. You can buy access to all the underlying content. You have monetization services that you can just plug in. And this is an issue because it really decentralizes the problem of piracy. If you don't get to the wholesale problem, you have to fight all the retail piracy services that rely on those services. And so, just looking at some key insights as well. I talked about cultural normalization, which is an issue. I think we all know a lot of people that have IPTV boxes or, pay subscriptions. Um, the problem is also the transnational networks. We see that the operators are in one country, but they're using infrastructure elsewhere. And it's not always the case that the infrastructure will be outside of Europe. That is sometimes a misconception. The top hosting services are very often in France or in the Netherlands, where, we really have hosting champions. So, what do we do about it at the NPA? Well, we really believe in a 360 approach to content protection. So, that means 360 in terms of who we collaborate with, all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. It also means 360 in the timeline. We have to protect content before, during, and after content is released. And it means using every tool available, every legal tool we have available. So, investigation and identification of pirate operators is very often a major issue. Pirates hide in anonymity online, even easier than criminals do it in a physical world. So, for that, we have right of information claims that can be helpful to work with intermediaries and get more information about the pirate services that contract these services. Civil litigation, of course, we have criminal referrals. Cooperation with local and global law enforcement is absolutely key. Cease and desist campaigns can have real effects. Intermediary collaboration across all those other legal teams tools. Dynamic site blocking, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Live piracy is a huge issue today. And TPN, I'll immediately dive into that. So what is TPN? It's a global security initiative that is owned by the NPA, and it's really to protect the pre-release content. Often people know that, where does a copy come from? It can be before the content is actually released. And so TPN really sets out those best practices to protect that content throughout the supply chain and make sure that the third-party vendors that we work with obey by some of those principles. Absolutely key step in the process of protecting content. And then, of course, there is ACE. I don't know if anyone has heard of ACE. ACE is an alliance that we created in 2017. Today brings together over 50 content creators and distributors of content and still growing, and is absolutely key in terms of really addressing the issue at international level. With ACE, we use all of the tools, almost all of the tools that I described before. So ACE will typically investigate and try to locate the operators, the systems behind it, civil, criminal litigation, but very importantly, that collaboration with the intermediaries and with the local and global law enforcement. And I'll give you a couple of examples of very successful cases and best practices of ACE that gives you an idea why this international collaboration is so important. So you see here some headlines of ACE cases that, have gotten international attention. What we really want to do with all those tools is disrupt the piracy model. We really want to send a signal that, these are not crimes that go unnoticed, unpunished, and making it very difficult for them to operate. And I don't know if anyone knows of F movies. Movies was actually the biggest global streaming operation located in Vietnam, launched in 2016 to become indeed the greatest streaming operation in the world. And it was very long perceived as untouchable. And so with that kind of international collaboration, we were able to take it down. I'll give some more examples later on, but I first want to kind of stop and look at another key tool, which I mentioned in the 360 approach, which is side blocking. Side blocking is a very complementary tool to actually addressing the underlying piracy. We now have it in over 50 countries in the world. It started in the EU with the 2001 directive, Article 8.3 for the legal nerds out here. And it is really so key because the intermediaries, the ISPs that give access, to the internet are often best placed to stop access or reduce access to those underlying illegal services. It's of course very important that we do this in a targeted manner. So we only target structurally infringing websites with those kind of actions. Let's zoom in maybe a little bit on Europe and side blocking. I mentioned that the trendsetter was the EU. So there it has been around for over 20 years. The first orders we actually saw coming out of Denmark, Italy, and the UK, who were really leading the way on side blocking. And if you look at the map, you see different colors. So the gray countries are the ones where we still have a missing legal framework. The green ones have implemented side blocking, and the blue ones, and this is absolutely key, have implemented dynamic side blocking. So what does that mean? It means that the orders are flexible, and when the underlying piracy changes the method. So very quickly when we block them, they will just change the URL, create a mirror website, or just reuse the same piracy brand on another service. And the dynamic side blocking enables us to continue to block that service even when they change the URL. If it's not dynamic, it's not going to be very effective. So this is really the goal. We also now see a combination of civil and administrative side blocking. So we started with civil side blocking. Administrative side blocking, so for example, we have ARCOM in France, AGICOM in Italy, has the advantage of being much faster than the civil cases in front of the courts. And it's also less costly. Great example there, I would say, is Greece, where they have automated blocking for live piracy through an administrative system. And as you can see, there is still quite a bit of gray in this region. So side blocking is still developing in this region. We know of some precedents in the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania, some initiatives underway in Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, but we still have a way to go. So I want to go back to some examples that, might speak to the kind of international way the piracy services operate and how we can address them through ACE. This one in the bigger CE region is one from Romania, where, again, very big one, active since 2015, also seen as untouchable, a major hub for illegal streaming in the region. What we did is with 3 right of information claims in France on a lot of intermediaries in Europe, we managed to ultimately take the site down with cease and desist letters. And so just, once you've identified the pirates and they know they're no longer hiding in anonymity, they start collaborating. And so that can have huge effects. It led to the shutdown of the service just last year in November 2024. And it was really a major enforcement milestone in this region. I'll show you another one that can kind of give you an idea of the impact of these actions. I don't know if anyone knows of Aptobox. Aptobox and AptoStream was globally top 5 cyberlocker. A cyberlocker is that underlying content providing the links that other piracy services will then use and link to. And through civil action in France and really great collaboration with law enforcement also at international level, but mainly through taking legal action together with Canal+ and France Télévisions, who are ACE members in France. We got an order from the courts in Paris to seize the equipment, which was based right just outside of Paris, and also freeze the assets of the pirates. So the pirates, the two gentlemen that were operating Aptobox, were based in Dubai. And as I said, the servers in France, we were able to freeze assets in Germany. So this really shows how this international collaboration with law enforcement and with all the ACE members can have real effect. And so this led to the shutdown of Aptobox in 2023. But the immediate impact was that more than 100 piracy services that relied on the cyberlocker had links that were no longer working. So the impact in terms of disrupting piracy globally was huge with an action like this. And then finally, a last point I want to make, I hinted at it in the beginning, is communication. We really need to have strong communication towards the consumers to shift attitudes. And so that's why we support public campaigns like Get It Right from a Genuine Site in the UK. FAPAF does great campaigns called We Are Stories that really show the people behind the piracy. And then we have Rispettiamo la creatività as well in Italy. And so we really target the consumers, especially young people, by, as I said, showing the human side of creativity. Because ultimately, if we want to reduce the demand for piracy, we really need to increase respect for the creative process. So maybe just to finish this presentation, in addition to the different tools that we combine, the technical tools that we combine, a 360 approach to content protection really requires alignment across different sectors, across borders, and also across values. So yeah, if we want the creative industries to flourish, we must protect their foundation, and that's the ability to invest, to innovate, and to be rewarded. Thank you very much. And I think I get to invite Chris Marsic up.
My pleasure to join you, Emilie. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there were a few messages for Croatia that were subtle, but I thought clear. We do have some ways to go. I think Sanja knows this. Others in the audience who have tried to get more focus on piracy know it. Our legislation is somewhat lacking. We don't have really site blocking legislation. But I'm not a piracy expert. I don't know much about it. I do think that we need to do a lot more. First of all, let me reiterate my heartfelt congratulations to you for becoming the president of the MPA. I think it's great for the MPA. Very fortunate to have you. You have a lot of excellent background, and you're talented, creative, and well-versed, as we saw from your presentation here. So congratulations, Emilie.
Thank you. Very nice words.
Yeah, Ash, you deserve it. So you started the job, what, in January?
Yeah.
You're 6 months into the job?
Hardly, yeah.
Hardly, okay. Little birdie told me, little informant, that it's the first time the MPA office has had a non-American and a woman in this role. Yeah, that's true, maybe. And also, what does that mean? What does that say about the MPA? Is the MPA a male-dominated organization or otherwise?
Funny you would ask that, Chris. I don't know if people know this, but Chris actually had my job for over 20 years at the MPA before becoming the head of the Croatian Audiovisual Center. So I think from 95 to 2015.
I kept that secret here.
Is that a secret? Oh, oops.
Right.
So yeah, I guess you kind of fit that description that you just...
That I'm a guy here. I think
You're
so.
white, male, and
they still
American. I mean, or at least you were American.
was.
And so I guess your successor also fitted that profile. So I guess it's fair enough to say that the Brussels office has had that kind of leadership for a very long time. And, funny anecdote, we found minutes of an MPA meeting taking place in 1925, January 25, so more than 100 years ago, where the MPA members, so that was really at the beginning of the film industry, the minutes say that the members of the International Export Committee recommend to send a man to Europe to be their representative and, very interestingly, to be on the outlook for pirated copies of films. So some things have not really changed. Piracy was actually already an issue 100 years ago. But, kidding aside about sending the man to Europe, um, I am actually really proud to be the first European and the first woman in this role, and also the first internal promotion. And maybe I'm even most proud of that aspect. Um, but it's not true that female leadership or local leadership is new at the MPA. The Brussels office is actually the last one to follow the trend of having female and local leadership. All my colleagues leading the other regional offices are women from the region. So in Canada, Latin America, Asia Pacific as well. And the MPA has really become a truly international organization over the years. We don't just export US content to the world. Our members are deeply engaged in producing local content, but also bringing local content to a global stage. And we were, I guess under your time, we were called the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, and we dropped that second A of 2019, I think. We are really a global organization, an international one, and having local leadership makes total sense in that context to connect indeed. As I said earlier, everything we do is adapted to the local stakeholders, engagement with, local authorities. And, why not female as well?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I, you said you were promoted internally. Can you tell us a little bit about your career path? How is it that you go from high school to president of the MPA?
Hmm. Well, actually, a lot of that happened by accidents, I would say, opportunities along the way. Um, I think I would maybe describe myself as a social introvert in a way, which means I love people, that I prefer smaller gatherings and, deep connections. And I don't think as a teenager I was imagining a career with, this much traveling, connecting to people. I actually wanted to become a pilot, but I didn't. I decided to study law. I wanted to be an international human rights lawyer. While studying international law, I discovered European law and intellectual property and got really interested in that, and started in a Belgian law firm that was specialized in intellectual property, mainly trademarks and general IP, pharmaceutical patents. But this woman that was doing all the media and copyright cases had just left. And so that became my niche, and I became really an expert in media law and copyright law. And then an opportunity opened at Paramount, the Belgian office. So they were looking for a company lawyer for their Belgian channel. So the Belgian MTV at the time, Nickelodeon channel, um, the local music channel, which was very big in Belgium, the Music Factory. And through being at Paramount, I discovered the European bubble in practice a little bit, because Paramount is a member of the MPA, where I am now. They're also a member of the Association of Commercial Television and now Video on Demand. And so when an opportunity opened up at the ACT at the time, I jumped on that. And so I went from Belgium to Brussels in a way. You might think that is a logical move for a lot of Belgians to work in the European Brussels bubble, but actually it's not. A lot of Belgians are not aware of the great careers that the European institutions and the adjacent organizations have to offer, or they're too modest to think that those jobs are available to Belgians. So I got this great opportunity at the ACT at the time, and then I think 5 years later, 2017, uh, there was an opportunity at the MPA to head up government affairs for the EMEA region. And so I went there. I think that was 2 years after you had left. And so the last 7 years at the MPA has been such a legislative roller coaster. I mean, we had the 2019 Copyright Directive. We had the Digital Services Act key in enforcement in 2022. And just last year, the AI Act. So, yeah, I guess I must have done something right because last autumn they offered me this promotion.
Yeah, uh, well deserved, I might say. Um, I think you're a great role model. Actually, you've shown how one can move and with a lot of talent and skill, and also a little bit of luck. I think in many careers we will find that element of a door open that you hadn't seen before, and it's great. And I think your example should encourage a lot of others, women and men too, actually. When you got this job, when it was announced, I remember reading your comments on it, and you described it as your dream job, and I saw you making remarks on it, and you really spoke with a lot of passion about it being your dream job. But I'm curious, I mean, how different is it from the job you had been doing that led you to being selected? You described all of the hurdles you had to navigate. So please say a few words about that.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, my previous job at the MT was already a dream job. What is different about this one is I was responsible for advocacy and policy, and now I oversee all operations and personnel in the region. So that also includes content protection work that I was presenting earlier, and I do like more high level representation compared to I was much more in the weeds. Um, what makes it really a dream job is that, the MPA is really at the forefront of content protection. It's really, I would say, world-class leader on content protection. It's, great to be part of that. But also on policy, we're at the forefront of all the key global policy developments. So in that sense, it's really, an amazing international job. And of course, I don't need to tell anyone here that, working for an industry that you can feel so personally connected to makes it, very enjoyable. I love our members' services and content, whether it is their international or local content. I think what makes this job particularly a dream job for me is that I feel I have this cake and eat it kind of situation. Like during working hours, I have a thrilling international job with all the advantages that comes with that, like all the traveling, meeting so many interesting and lovely people. Um, and at the same time, I live 10 minutes away in Belgium from the office. So I get to live a normal, typical Belgian life when I get home. And that also comes with great advantages. I can, if I want to go and have dinner with my high school girlfriends on a Tuesday, and my kids have a real Belgian upbringing and they get to spend a lot of time with the extended family that lives only an hour away. So I guess, living this international career while actually being at home is a real privilege. And you don't have a lot of, Belgians, as I said earlier, in that bubble.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have a lot of travel, a lot of events you have to do in Brussels and around, and you still seem to be able to maintain a work-life balance and preserve a quality relationship with your family and with your kids, which I think is admirable. How do you manage that,
Yeah.
really?
I don't want to sound pedantic here, Chris, but I don't love the work-life balance phrase. I mean, I feel like it's almost suggesting that we're not living while working, which is a bit of a sad thought. I mean, we do spend most of our times working, and I know it's a privilege to think of your job that way, and I know that I'm very fortunate to enjoy my jobs the way that I do. But I know, of course, what you mean. You're absolutely right. I mean, all the travel, extra work, evening events, as you say, does eat into my personal time. Um, my family is my absolute priority. And I have a husband who's extremely supportive, a great father, but he also has an exciting and very busy and challenging job. So, in practice, that means that during this phase of my life, it's all work and family, and there's little room for anything else. So, the high school dinners that I mentioned earlier, it's true that I might have skipped a few over the last months, and I don't do any yoga every morning or any morning. Uh, I do like what for me, I start every morning that I'm in Brussels with a 30-minute snuggle with my boys. We eat breakfast together and dinner and make it a real thing. That means that my boys, they're teenagers now, are responsible for dinner very, very often. And they do such a great job at it. And I'm super proud of them. And they're very proud of their mom and dad. And yeah, I mean, there are some sacrifices, but overall, I think we have a good balance. And, the fact a lot of Belgians have a 2-hour commute every day. The fact that I live 10 minutes away from home kind of makes up for the extra work, I would say. So yeah, now it's all kids, family, and work. And unfortunately, in a couple of years, they will be off to university already, and then I will have plenty of time for yoga and girlfriends and whatever else there is in life.
Well, I think, I mean, I think you do an admirable job. I think, in addition to having a dream job, you seem to be a dream mother. And I think that's really challenging with all of what you do and carry around. So it's another reason why many of us admire you and who have known you for a long time. And I congratulate you again on this job. I won't even wish you luck. You don't need luck. You have all the talent it takes to do a brilliant job. So congratulations again, and we'll see you at NEM, I hope, many more times in the future, right, Sanya? Yeah, okay.
Well,
Thank you very much.
thank you for the kind questions, Chris. And thanks again for the invite, Sanya. Thank you.